There have always been two things you never questioned when the subject was Dave Humphrey. One was his talent. You do not win the races he won. You do not beat the people Dave Humphrey beat in the course of a career that spanned more than 30 years without having a degree of talent which is best described as God-given. The second thing you never questioned about this man Humphrey was his bravery. He had some of his greatest years in a time when you couldn't find a single type of race car which was truly safe. The coupes were dangerous, the midgets were dangerous, the sprint cars were dangerous, and this man, Dave Humphrey, drove them all. Every weekend in those early days, he climbed into cars that a lot of today's toughest guys might be afraid to sit in. He drove jalopies in the days before fuel cells. He drove sprint cars and midgets in the days before roll cages. He drove and he won in a time when the only things that kept a driver safe were a skinny seatbelt, an open-face helmet, and a lot of good luck. Of course, even for the best drivers, luck had a way of running a little thin sometimes. In 1960, at a fairgrounds track in Bedford, Pennsylvania, a stuck throttle sent Humphrey's sprint car hurtling out of the ballpark and through the wall of a livestock barn. When the first people to the scene approached the wreckage, they saw the car upside down with Humphrey beneath it. A lot of very good drivers died that way in those terrible days, flipping unsafe cars out of unsafe racetracks. Many of those who managed to survive such wrecks were never the same behind the wheel, because there's never any telling how that kind of crash is going to affect a guy physically or mentally or both. Humphrey got banged up pretty good that afternoon at Bedford. His shoulder was a mess, and a month went by before he was ready to race again. But when he came back, all he did was have the best years of his career. So you do not dare question Humphrey's guts or Humphrey's ability. But when you look back at his life and times, there are some questions that do arise. Actually, it's always the same question, over and over again. And the question is, what if? Because as grand as Humphrey's record is, and it is a record punctuated by trophies and checkered flags, you cannot possibly daydream about his career without coming to that same conclusion every time. What if? Think about it. What if Dave Humphrey had decided to stay in stock cars? This is a man who won track championships in various stock car classes at Seekonk Speedway, at the old track in West Peabody, Massachusetts, and at the Norwood Arena. This is a man who won the first ever modified stock car championship at the Waterford Speed Bowl. This is a man who did magical things behind the wheel of a stock car, yet he squeezed all these things into half a career. Stock car racing, as it turned out, was merely Dave Humphrey's opening act. For that matter, you can turn the whole question around. What if Humphrey had bypassed stock cars altogether, starting his career in open-wheel cars rather than ending it there? He had quick success with URC, which was then one of the toughest sprint car organizations in the country. In midgets, he beat the best in both NEMA and ARDC, and if you're talking about midget racing in the East, that means he beat everybody. In NEMA alone, Dave Humphrey won 72 feature races and 6 championships, 5 of them in a row. This is a man who compiled a brilliant open-wheel record, and again, he did all that in what was essentially half a career. Midgets and sprint cars, you see, were the second act of this two-part play called the Dave Humphrey story. But maybe this is the biggest what-if question of all. What if, instead of showing up in the late 40s at places like Seekonk and the old Kingston Fairgrounds, Dave Humphrey had come along in the late 90s, young and brimming with all of that natural talent? What might have become of this versatile driver, this crossover genius, who could climb out of a stock car and into a midget and steer them both into victory lane? We live in an era in which American automobile racing celebrates the young driver who can do it all. You show that kind of talent today, and right away the entire world is calling you the next Jeff Gordon, the next Tony Stewart. It was different in Humphrey's day. In fact, his versatility probably worked against him. For most of his career, stock car people and open-wheel people lived in different worlds. If you followed one type of racing, you followed it with all your heart, and you had little time for anything else. So there were midget fans who had no idea how good Humphrey was in a stock car, and there were stock car fans who all but lost track of the guy once he went off to drive midgets. Happily for us, history doesn't judge a race driver simply by the kind of car he drove. History is more interested in numbers, and damn few men in the long and shining heritage of New England auto racing can match numbers with Dave Humphrey. Every driver in this Hall of Fame, including those we induct today, traveled a glorious road to get here, but not many navigated a road as long and as winding as the one Dave Humphrey traveled down. Finally, Dave, that road has brought you home, because today and for all time, you reside among your peers in the New England Antique Racers Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the great ones, Mr. Dave Humphrey. We've also got a letter I'll read quickly from one of Dave's relatives, who everybody in this room also knows. Dear Dave, sorry I cannot join you and your family as you celebrate this momentous occasion. A muscle disease, 1,500 miles, and 80-degree temperatures are my only excuse. Al Feeney and members of his NEAR organization have done an outstanding job in keeping the Northeast auto racing fraternity at the forefront. They are to be commended along with your fellow inductees. Unfortunately, we have all lost track of the amount of races you won. However, I do recall an incident that occurred after your late wife Lila had just finished dusting and polishing the trophies that covered her living room wall, her window sills, her end tables, and her mantelpiece. When she was asked how many races Dave won, her answer was, too damn many. Well, Dave, young stars will emerge from the Northeast, records will be broken, and legends will continue to be honored. Perhaps one day on a TV quiz show, the question will be, name the very competitive, freckle-faced kid who was born and raised in Seekonk, Massachusetts, awarded a Purple Heart at age 18 for injuries received in World War II combat in southern France, and honorably discharged at war's end. After returning home to Seekonk, he decided to pursue a career in auto racing, influenced by the building of the new Seekonk Speedway only 2 miles from home. After a few years of trial and error and tons of persistence, checkered flags began to fly, followed by championships in stock cars, midgets, and sprint cars. A quiet, humble man, a good husband, a father of 4 children, and a proud grandfather of 4 very talented grandchildren, a machinist by trade, having worked for the same company for 27 years before retiring. And the answer to that quiz show question would be, what is it, Dave Humphrey? Congratulations, Hump, and God bless your favorite brother-in-law, Wally Saliba.
Thanks, Bone. And thanks for not using that stuff that Earl Grant gave you. And I want to thank Wally for this plaque. I usually have him do the talking and I do the driving. But he's not here, so I guess I got to do the talking. I was looking at these plaques up here, and I was thinking, when I look at these plaques, what I see is all the race fans. They love and cheer their favorites, and they hate and boo his rivals. But if that rival gets hurt, they're the first ones to pray for him and send them cards and letters, and that's what race fans are. And in those plaques, I see the car owners, drivers, pitman, and the gals that are with them through the good times and bad. I see the track promoters, the track owners, and all the officials that make the races go so smooth. Scorers, the handicappers, and the starters. And I also see the announcers and the writers who make us out to be more than what we really are. And I see the beautiful, gorgeous trophy girls. And I often thought, geez, if I only could take them home with me, what a harem I could have. I'd be the envy of all the sheiks in the world. And in those plaques, I see all these people all my friends up in the Golden Speedway. The Eddies, the Freddies, the Hops, the Richies, the Anthonys, the Harrys, Texas, all that. And also I see, don't forget the guys that we're honoring today. Jocko, I can never pronounce his last name, but I always called him Giacomo Giacomo. What a driver he was. And now all the car owners up there are trying to get him to drive their car. And then there's Mario Caruso, and a lot of people say, I thought he was an opera singer. But he was, he couldn't sing be worth a damn, but boy could he make a race car sing. When I take that plaque home, I'll hang it on the wall, and I'll look up, I'll lay on a couch, look up, and I'll see 1,000,000 stories, 1,000,000 tales, and also 1,000,000 dreams. And probably there's one dream that'll come out of all those dreams, and that is the beautiful trophy girls and the harem I could have had. Thank you.
Let's stay right up here. Right front here.
Hey, take your plaque. Hey, take your plaque. Come over to the board. Place it in the memoriam with all the rest. That'll be there for generations to come. This is yours to take home as a memory. This is what you brought from Wally. One of the programs, 1 to 10 is in here. Take one of these. Come on over here. Proud to do it. Hope you wear this with pride. It's a special near jacket indicating that you're a member of the New England Antique Gracious Hall of Fame. Hope you wear that with pride.